The Human Medicines Regulations has many parts that covers various aspects of the sales supply of medicines. Now, one of those aspects, which I'm just briefly going to touch upon, is advertising. There is obviously more information in the Dale and Appleby's pharmacy law textbook, and really the principles around advertising are almost common sense. So the key three aspects are that no person can publish an advertisement for a medicinal product unless that product has got a marketing authorization or certificate of registration. And they must be, all the information within those advertisements must be consistent with the summary of product characteristics. So they can't make unproven claims. The second one is that no person can publish an advertisement relating to a medicinal product unless that advertisement encourages rational use of that product. So they need to present it objectively and without exaggerating its properties, and therefore not be encouraging misuse. The third aspect or requirement to consider in advertising is that no person can publish a misleading advertisement relating to a medicinal product. So again, nothing that can be false or unproven by the summary of product characteristics. Now, Part 11 of the Human Medicines Regulations is all about pharmacovigilance, and what that stipulates is that there are general obligations on the licensing authority that has to ensure that this takes place. And really what it states is that the licensing authority must take all appropriate measures to encourage the reporting of any suspected adverse reactions. They also need to facilitate the reporting through provision of alternative reporting formats in addition to web-based formats. They need to take appropriate measures to measure accurate and verifiable data for scientific evaluation of suspected adverse reports. They need to ensure the public is given important information on pharmacovigilance concerns relating to the use of the medicine in a timely manner through publication on the UK web portal and through other means that allows the public to access that information. They also need to ensure all appropriate measures are taken to identify any biological medicinal product dispensed or sold in the UK which is the subject of a suspected adverse reaction through the methods of collecting data, and when necessary the follow-up of suspected adverse reaction reports. So really the regulations are saying they need to the licensing authority needs to ensure that they are measuring the reporting of adverse reactions, they're facilitating that reports through allowing different platforms to be available for people to report. They also need to be carrying out some sort of monitoring to ensure that the data that's coming through is accurate and verifiable. They also need to ensure that what's fed back to the public is accessible and is done so in a timely manner about the use of medicines. And they also need to ensure that if there are any suspected adverse reactions reported, that they can identify any medicinal products out there to either recall them or address any warnings. The Human Medicines Regulations also have provisions around labelling and containers. Now, labelling needs to be legible, comprehensible, indelible. It needs to be in English only or in English and one or more other languages, providing the same details appear in all of the languages. So you can find some products that are coming from Europe may have all of the details in German, but they will also have additional labels that have all of the details, exactly the same details in English. Now, the labelling of medicinal products, the outer packaging of those products needs to be labelled in accordance with the regulations and the stipulations within those. So the following information must appear on the medicinal products. So it needs to have the name, the form, the strength of the product. You need to have the active ingredient, the number of dosage units or volume, the list of excipients, the method of administration, a warning that the medicine should be kept out of the reach and sight of children, any other warnings necessary for the product, for example, keep out of direct sunlight, and the expiry date, and that should be in the month and the year. Other special storage requirements need to be stipulated, and special precautions relating to disposal. There needs to be the name and address of the marketing authorization holder, the number of the marketing authorization, the manufacturer's batch number, and in the case of non-prescription medicines, there needs to be the instructions for how to use it. Where the medicine is in a blister pack, the blister pack needs to have on it the name, strength and form of the medicinal product, the expiry date, the name of the holder and the marketing authorization, and the batch number. Now, there might be additional labelling that's required due to the legal classification of the product. So in addition to the standard labelling I've just described, there may be some additional labelling for P medicines, POM, and those that contain paracetamol. So medicines that contain paracetamol need to have specifically on the box that this medicine contains paracetamol. Also, there need to be the statements: do not take more medicine than the label tells you. If you do not get better, talk to the doctor. An additional label is: do not take anything else containing paracetamol whilst taking this medicine. And also, talk to a doctor at once if you take too much of this medicine, even if you feel unwell. All of these labels have been stipulated because of the awareness of paracetamol toxicity and the risk of overdose. So because of that, these have been recognised statements that have to appear on boxes that have drugs that have medicine have paracetamol in them. So for dispensed medicinal products, it's something that's been dispensed against prescription, standard labelling requirements do not apply. Okay, so all of those details I've just listed do not apply. Ideally, you should dispense a medicine in the original package and add the dispensing label to it. So if it's already in its original package, it will have the standard labelling, and the dispensing label will just have the details that's required against the dispensing label. And a dispensing label, so a pharmacy dispensing label, needs to have the main name of the patient, the name and address of the pharmacy, the date of dispensing, the name of the product, directions for use, precautions related to the use of the product, the statement that says keep it out of the reach of children, ideally keep out of reach and sight of children. The quantity isn't a legal requirement, but it is good practice. Now, thinking about the precautions relating to the use of a product, there are two types of warning labels: pharmaceutical warnings and B&F warnings. Now, the pharmaceutical warnings, they encompass things such as for external use only, shake the bottle and store in a cool, dry place, because they really relate to stability and the optimum conditions that will allow that formulation to be in the best state for use. B&F labels, now they are labelled so in such a way that when you look up a medicine in the B&F, you will have additional labels under counselling. And they will have a list of 1 to about 26, I think. And at the back of the B&F, you've got what those numbers relate to. So if you get your B&F out and look at the last few pages, you will see a list of B&F warnings. Some B&F warnings can be incorporated into the directions. So, for example, there's one that says take 30 to 60 minutes before food. That can be incorporated directly into directions rather than being put separately as a warning. It's important that you explain why the warning is on the label. So it's important that you don't just tell a patient take 30 to 60 minutes before food, but if you explain to them, they're more likely to adhere to the instructions because they have an understanding of why that warning is actually suggested. Now, patient information leaflets, they have been a legal requirement since July the 1st, 1999, otherwise known as PILs. They must be supplied each time a medicinal product is sold or supplied, and that includes dispensing. Now, the full details of the legal requirements for the information to be included on the pill are contained within the Human Medicines Regulations 2012. And what they include is the identification of the medicinal product, the therapeutic indications, a list of information that's necessary before taking the medication, so things such as contraindications, interactions, for example. So the similar subheadings that you would find in B&F. Also on the leaflet you would find the necessary and usual instructions for proper use. They would have a description of the undesirable effects that can occur with normal use and the action that should be taken in such cases. There should be a reference to the expiry date on the label and the date on which the leaflet was last revised. So if you pick up any drug box within the pharmacy, it should have a PIL in there, or if not, there may be supplementary PILs within the same drawer or shelf. So once that product is dispensed, you have a PIL to accompany that dispensed product. Now, packaging issues. All medicines should be dispensed in child-resistant containers, blisters or strip packs. There are certain exemptions. So where someone has reduced manual dexterity, the child-resistant containers, blister packs and strip packs may be a nightmare for them. They just may not be able to manipulate them, and there may be an agreement between the pharmacy and the patient of a more appropriate form of packaging the medication. So we've really covered within this video cast aspects around pharmacovigilance, some aspects around labelling, packaging and advertising. So I'll just refer you to the Dale and Appleby Pharmacy Medicines Law chapters 2 to 4 of the 10th edition, and that really goes into quite some detail. But really I've touched upon the most important aspects within this video cast.